Well, to answer your first question, I would say not enough. I think that we're fighting a war that we've been fighting longer than World War II. And, we're fighting a war that is longer than any major conflict in the American history. And most people are just worried about who's going to win on American Idol and, what the cast of Glee is going to look like next year, in addition to trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills because of chronic unemployment. And I think that that's really unfortunate. There was an interesting article just this morning that I read where the former Miss England, Miss Great Britain, I guess, Miss England, has enlisted in as a territorial army soldier in the army of the United Kingdom, and that's a big deal because not just for her own service, but because where is that happening in the United States? The highest profile example we've got is Ranger Pat Tillman, who gave up a multi-million-dollar contract with the Cardinals to enlist in the Army Rangers, and certainly we know how that turned out. But where has been the clarion call to people across the United States, celebrities, professionals, people that are more focused on making money traditionally, to come out and serve your nation because your nation needs you? I think that the American public is not paying enough attention to this. They're just focused on getting us out, thinking that it's all going to be wine and roses once we get out, without realizing that in a counterinsurgency fight, successful counterinsurgencies, take well over a decade to resolve in a peaceful manner, and nobody wants to hear that up front. So, that's the first part of your question. I don't remember the second part of it.
Does this level of interest surprise you?
Well, it does, in that, I've been to 38 funerals of my peers and friends, and stood hand in hand or arm in arm or by the sides of parents and spouses and children of service members. I've twice had to deliver the news, been the notification officer standing at a door with a chaplain at my side, and it's certainly taken a toll on me and my family, and I get surprised when so many people don't recognize the Herculean sacrifice of so many service members. You see that now, 9 years into this fight, with people, recognizing people's service when you see a soldier in uniform in the airport. But, I think that the news media have done their role, but I think that, the average American is more concerned about paying the bills and watching TV than they are about what's going on overseas with service members.
What are the most important books written on the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and our general struggle with terrorism since 9/11?
What did you ask? What they are?
Yeah. What are the most important books in your estimation?
Well, I do not know how to answer that, only because I literally, and I don't mean this as a boast, I'm a prolific reader, Luke. I read like every book out there. So I've met several of the authors of some of these books. The Good Soldiers is a great one. That's a very heavy book. That I read most recently. Boy, you caught me off guard with that question. Boy, if I had known that you...
Yeah, we can do it via email. You can maybe email me later. That's fine. Can you name any of the most impressive journalists that you've dealt with since 9/11?
David Finkel immediately comes to mind. Tom Ricks. I did a tour in Afghanistan with Nightline, and being terrible right now because I'm not remembering the journalist's name, and I hope you don't put this on broadcast. Terry, God. And you know how to ambush a Army Ranger, man. You just, like, pounce out questions with that I have not expected.
I trained under Muqtada al-Assad.
Then you have trained under a 20-something, a belligerent 21-year-old high school dropout. Excellent. Yeah, I've had the privilege of working with an awful lot of great defense journalists. I'll tell you, J.J. Sutherland out of NPR, dynamite reporter. I spent a good month with him in outside of Kalat and Kandahar in southern Afghanistan. Yeah, David immediately comes to mind. I think there are some just extraordinary journalists out there that are really admirable for the work that they're doing.
What do you love and what do you hate about dealing with the news media?
Well, I guess really it goes to the nature of news. A basic journalism precept is the nature of news, and good news doesn't sell ads, and good news doesn't sell newspapers, and so seldom do you get great news stories told in a public forum. As an example, we've got a fairly recent construction in Afghanistan called the detention facility in Parwan, which replaced the Bagram Theater Internment Facility. It's basically a detention facility is by any other name a prison, a supermax prison, but it's not a prison. We don't have prisoners in it because they haven't been adjudicated through the court system, and they're starting that process now in Afghanistan. But very recently we had an international U.S.-based television media crew get access to the DFIP, or the detention facility in Parwan. Got to see the detainees, got to interview some of them, got to work with the programs, got to see what's going on, got to see that every single detainee, regardless of who they are, when they're brought into the detention facility in Parwan, it's issued a Quran that's never been touched by Western hands, and a prayer rug, gets 3 meals a day, so much so that on average they gain 35 to 40 pounds while they're in U.S. detention. They're taught how to read and write their native language, whether that's Dari or Pashto, in some cases Arabic. They're taught a skill, and the news crew was spent over 2 days touring the facility and getting informational briefs, and finished and told the battalion commander, man, that's great, and we can't make a news story about this because that's not my assignment editor sent me here to do. So we thought we were going to uncover another Abu Ghraib, and that's not what's going on here. So I'm sorry we sort of wasted 2 days of your soldiers' time because this isn't the story we can tell. So that kind of stuff frustrates me because I think that service members, regardless if they're soldiers, sailors, airmen, or Marines, are doing amazing work that needs to be recognized, and their story needs to be shouted from the mountaintop. I mean, they're really doing amazing work, and they ought to be congratulated by having their story told publicly. What
have been the most important chapters in your education about the war on terror?
I think having, I had the father of Oregon's Oregon National Guard's first casualty. I was working with his family, and at the boy's wake, young man's wake, I've got my governor at my left. I've got my adjutant general at my right. I've got a couple other influencers immediately around me, and I had this soldier's father just ask me if I had any children, and I said, "Yeah, Art, I've got 2 sons just like you," and that sort of snapped it for him. He had a nervous breakdown in my arms in front of his entire family. That was definitely one of the heavier lessons of the personal toll that this takes. I